Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to our morning worship and prayer. And as we prepare our hearts to lift up our voices to God and to look to Him and lift up our hearts to Him, I would like to encourage us to join the psalmist in Psalm 119, verse 9 to 12. This is what it says: How can a young man keep his way pure? By guarding it according to your word. With my whole heart I seek you. Let me not wander from your commandments. I have stored up your word in my heart, that I might not sin against you. Blessed are you, O Lord. Teach me your statutes. May we worship Him and seek Him with all of our hearts, and as we prepare to receive God's message that will minister to us and prepare us for the things up ahead. Let's worship Him in spirit and in truth.
Moments in my darkest hour, you're the God who hears me when I'm crying out for help, when my faith is shaking, when I'm all struck down. You're the God who sees me, you're the God who saves. I will bless the Lord, I will bless the Lord at all times. I will bless the Lord, I will bless the Lord at all times. In your lavish kindness, I've been washed by grace. You're the God who loves me. I can't keep it to myself. I want to shout your story, I want to sing your praise. You're the God who's mighty. You set my heart ablaze. Oh, bless you, Lord. I will bless the Lord, I will bless the Lord at all times. Oh, will bless you, Lord. I will bless the Lord, I will bless the Lord at all times. Oh, and now when you give and take, I'll stand on what you say, and I will bless the Lord at all times. And I can face the day, for you are strong to save, and I will bless the Lord at all times. I will bless the Lord, I will bless the Lord at all times. Oh, I will bless the Lord, I will bless the Lord at all times. And I can face the day, for you are strong to save, and I will bless the Lord at all times. And when you give and take, I'll stand on what you say, and I will bless the Lord at all times. And I can face the day, for you are strong to save, and I will bless the Lord at all times. And when you give and take, I'll stand on what you say, and I will bless the Lord at all times. I will bless the Lord, I will bless the Lord at all times. I will bless the Lord. I will bless the Lord at all times.
Our passage for today is found in Genesis chapter 39, verse 7 to 14. And I want to read it to us. It says here, "And after a time, his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, 'Lie with me.' But he refused and said to his master's wife, 'Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?' And as she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not listen to her, to lie beside her, or to be with her. But one day, when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was there in the house, she caught him by his garment, saying, 'Lie with me.' But he left his garment in her hand and fled and got out of the house. And as soon as she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled out of the house, she called to the men of her household and said to them, 'See, he has brought among us a Hebrew to laugh at us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice.'" Today's passage, we are looking from the life of Joseph, a young man, and I believe this is a message that not just every young man, but all of us maybe need to learn from and understand as we continue to follow Jesus, as we continue to look at the cost of discipleship and how we are to live a life of faith and a life of faithfulness, even if it may seem costly and challenging. And of course, Joseph is a very popular figure, Bible characters from Kids Church, and I think you're very much familiar. There's several chapters about him mentioned in the first book of the Bible in Genesis. And he is someone who had to go through a lot of challenges and difficulties in following the God who gave him a dream. We know him as Joseph the dreamer. God gave him a dream of how God is going to promote him, set him in place, even above his brothers, his siblings, and even, in a way, above his parents. But those dreams, though it came from God, had to bring him to a process of being tested and shaped and formed and challenged. And on this particular time, he was already second to Potiphar, an influential man in Egypt, and he was being used by God in a mighty way. He was blessed in every way, and in fact, the influential man, Potiphar, trusted him with everything. Of course, in this particular time, there was a testing, a temptation that he faced because Potiphar's wife, so probably she's going to be someone who's pretty, baka Miss Egypt, okay, someone of that caliber, because Potiphar is a very powerful, influential man, had her eye on him and wanted to seduce him and tempt him and wanted to, because Joseph, like some of you are, is very handsome, good looking, and not only that, very good in character, and the Spirit of God was really upon him and he was blessed. So I think all of us at some point will be tested and challenged in following Jesus as a disciple. But it's good for us to know that following God involves denying the temptation of sin. We have to learn how to deny the temptation of sin. I like how Joseph responded here. Kahit na yung wife na ni Potiphar yung lumalapit sa kanya, even if no one was there to actually see what could have happened. But he said here that, "How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" He knew that what's going to happen is not just something that Potiphar would not like. It's not just something that maybe others would not like if they saw him. And maybe in that day in culture, it could have been something that's acceptable. But for some reason, Joseph knew that what he was about to do, and if he would give in to the temptation, is something that is grievous against God. It's wickedness and sin against the God that he knew, against the God who gave him a dream, and a God who is in own perfect timing would fulfill that dream. And maybe he thought he was already living the dream because sold as a slave, and yet he ended up in Potiphar's house in charge of many things. But he decided to say no to it. And I think this is something that we need to recognize as we follow God, that what we tolerate today, the sin that we tolerate today, can dominate us tomorrow. You know, sin and temptation will try to promise us and offer us something beyond what it can deliver. And although sometimes yung sin doesn't have immediate consequences, if we keep on giving it to it, it becomes a struggle that we cannot just push aside. And I think as we follow God, as we continue to grow as a disciple, we need to learn to deny ourselves, carry our cross just to follow Jesus. We have to learn how to deny the temptation of sin. Just like what we read in Psalm a while ago, that the word will be hidden in our hearts so that we will not sin against Him, so that we will not be lured by the temptations of the world. Siguro in the day and age, sometimes people would say, Pastor, anong gagawin ko? Yung mais na yung malapit sa manok. And if that happens, I would always tell that person and remind that person and say, hindi ka naman manok. So kahit lumapit pa yung mais, it should not appeal to us. Sometimes it's good for us to be reminded that we are God's children, that God has His image and likeness in us, and we are to grow in His likeness, and we are to look at the purpose and the destiny that God has for us. And yes, there may be temptations that will try to distract us or disqualify us from the call of God, but if we keep looking to Jesus, if we keep looking to His destiny and His purpose for us and who we are supposed to be like, because we're supposed to be like Him in His image and likeness, I believe God will give us the grace and the strength to say no to temptations, even when they come at times. Of course, the second thing is something that we have to understand about following God. It's not just something that involves denying the temptation to sin, but it is also something that we have to do as a daily commitment. Following God is a day-to-day commitment. It's not just a one-time surrender to the Lord and surrendering, yes, not just our past, our present, but also our future one time. And it's as if the next will be a smooth sailing journey. No, it's going to be a day-to-day commitment. In verse 10, it says there, she spoke to Joseph day after day. But Joseph would not listen to her, to lie beside her, or to be with her. And I like how at this particular time, I don't know, it's as if like Potiphar's wife made sure that there will be no servants in the house so that she could have what she wants. But for some reason, Joseph was there. And when the Potiphar's wife grabbed him, Joseph ran for his life and left the coat. You know, it's like Joseph was probably thinking, it's better to lose a coat than to lose our character. And I'm thinking about this, of how many times that we could probably give into the temptation of sin. After all, hindi naman tayo yung nag-initiate, or nobody else will find out, or it can be kept, or it's just a one-time thing, and maybe it doesn't have to go on forever. But I think it's good for us to be reminded that doing right may cost us, but doing wrong will always destroy us. So we can never trade doing what's wrong, even if it's tempting, even if it seems pleasurable, even if it seems like no one will find out anyways, compared to doing what's right all the time. Because God sees everything anyways. And of course, I want to point out to us that, you know, following Jesus, being a disciple, is challenging and it's costly at times. And it involves denying the temptation to sin, and it involves a daily commitment. But I want to end it off by saying to us that following Jesus, being a disciple, even if it seems challenging and difficult and costly at times, it is greatly rewarding. When the world punishes us for righteousness, I believe it is because God is preparing us for greatness. We know what happened in the story. Joseph was falsely accused of, as the wife has implied, or nag-scandal yung wife. So Joseph was sent to prison, false accusation. But even then, God was at work with him. I believe because God was pleased with him, staying faithful, saying no to temptation, and of course, being committed to God. And medyo natagalan pa siya doon, even though he interpreted dreams yung two fellow prisoners. But there was a time when Pharaoh himself ended up having a dream. And then somebody remembered how Joseph could interpret dreams. And then when he was called, guess what happened? Joseph became next to Pharaoh. If he just stayed and gave in to Potiphar's wife, maybe he was imprisoned with no hope in the future. Maybe Potiphar could have had him killed. If the Potiphar's wife did not create a scandal out of it and nothing happened, and maybe he could just have stayed as Potiphar's second man. But because of what happened, even if it may seem hard and difficult, Joseph ended up becoming next to Pharaoh, the most powerful man in the land of Egypt, but all throughout the world that day, because when famine happened, Joseph was instrumental in not just saving Egypt, but also saving Israel, God's chosen people, from the devastation that the famine caused, and many nations as well. And I think this is why Egypt became the most powerful empire back then, because of Joseph, who passed the test, and Joseph, who denied the temptation to sin and made a daily commitment. Of course, it's not just about saying no to that. Joseph also had to learn how to keep forgiving his brothers who wanted to kill him and sold him as slaves, until eventually he became instrumental in bringing back the nation and forming eventually a people that God is preparing for his purposes, and eventually to enter the promised land. It's very important for us to keep following Jesus, to say no to temptation, and to have a daily commitment to the Lord. And even if it may seem challenging and difficult, kasi minsan nga, ikaw na nga yung gumagawa ng tama, ikaw pa yung pinapahirapan. Nagno-no ka na nga to temptation, parang ikaw pa yung may mali. And it's a daily commitment of following Jesus, even if there may seem a cost involved, persecution, or maybe it seems like you will be deprived of the promotion or the possible thing that you probably deserve more compared to others. But God sees everything. God sees all those sacrifices. And I believe in God's perfect time, those who are committed to Him, and those who are not just denying the temptations but daily following Him, will eventually find it very, very rewarding. Because God is our shield, He will protect us, and He is our great reward. And I pray for each and every one of us who are going through tough times. I pray like Joseph that we will have the Word of God hidden in our heart so that we can say no to temptation when it comes. I pray that we will have a greater vision of who God is and how He is worthy of even following, even if it may entail some form of persecution and challenges. And I pray that in God's time, God will show each and every one of us that following Him, whatever the cost may be, is greatly rewarding. Why don't we worship the Lord once again, enjoying the music team and lifting up our hearts and our concerns to Him, trusting that God will infuse faith in us so that we can remain faithful. Let's worship Him once again.
I can face the day, for you are strong to save, and I will bless the Lord at all times. And when you give and take, I'll stand on what you say, and I will bless the Lord at all times. And and I can face the day, for you are strong to save, and I will bless the Lord at all times. And when you give and take, I'll stand on what you say, and I will bless the Lord at all times. I will bless the Lord. I will bless the Lord at all times. I will bless the Lord. I will bless the Lord at all times.
Praise God. Praise God. Before I send you off as a form of a prayer, I want to borrow a prayer from the Apostle Paul when he was talking to the Thessalonians. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 3 to 5. And this is my word for all of us and my prayer for you. But the Lord is faithful. He will establish you and guard you against the evil one. And we have confidence in the Lord about you, that you are doing and will do the things that we command. May the Lord direct your hearts to the love of God and to the steadfastness of Christ. May your hearts be filled with the love of God and the steadfastness of Christ, so that we can remain steady and fastened to the one who saved us and redeemed us, and the one who continues to sanctify us for His glory. God bless you. Have a great day, and see you next time.